I already made 2 videos about this PC on my really old gameplay samples channel, so I'll summarize really quickly. 2017 marked 10 years of being on YouTube for me, and as a milestone of sorts, I wanted to update my channel to make, for the time, high-definition videos in 720p. I'd been using the same setup I used at the start of my channel from 2007 to 2017. By that time, the Alienware PC I mentioned in my Doom 3 review, which I moved over to my new review channel for those wondering where it went, was long dead. I have no idea what the issue was, it just wouldn't display out. And the A8N SLI motherboard I had in the system had no onboard graphics and no way of troubleshooting it. After my Alienware died, I scrounged up an old Dell Dimension 2400 with a single-core Celeron processor running at 2.4 GHz. I got it for free from a family member. I used that system to edit videos in Pinnacle Studio 10 from 2011 till 2017, when I finally picked up a cheapy HP Slimline from my local Walmart. At this time, even though I still owned quite a few games, I wasn't focused on PC gaming, even foregoing my normal ritual of putting Wind Quake, Quake 2, and Unreal on every new PC I get. The Slimline was only to edit videos with, and for 720p videos it did surprisingly well. The Slimline specs were low-end even for the time, but were a huge leap up from the circa 2004 Dell Dimension I was using. The Slimline felt like a huge jump in speed by comparison, even if its specs would have been budget build territory at the time, even in 2017. This little Slimline came with a dual-core Celeron G3930 processor, with each core running at 2.9 GHz, 4 GB of single-channel DDR4 RAM, a 500 GB mechanical hard drive, Intel HD60s integrated graphics, and a 180-watt PSU. I've had a few old PCs given to me over the years. I'm not necessarily a tech hoarder per se, I just hate to see people throwing perfectly good working computers away because they're quote-unquote obsolete. My first PC was a hand-me-down HP computer given to me by my brother-in-law, and there's something about OEM office PCs that I geek out to, I don't know why. In fact, my second most recent PC was a Dell Optiplex build. There's something about taking something that has been deemed completely worthless, something seen as unusable, unseen, unappreciated by the world around us, and fixing it up and bringing it back to life, finding a use for it, and giving it value when no one else sees any value in it. I like taking old PC hardware and helping it function again to do that in which it was created to do. And one of my favorite ways to take an old, slow PC and give it life again is putting Linux on it. Even with a slow mechanical hard drive, adding a Linux distro to an old PC can make it feel twice as fast as it felt before, especially with the option of lightweight distros. I booted up this old HP Slimline a couple of weeks ago out of curiosity. It still had Windows 10 on it at the time, and when I booted it up it was running terribly. For one, the hard drive was at 100% usage, probably from the pile of Windows updates being downloaded and applied. Maybe it's because I'm running newer hardware now, so I've adjusted to faster stuff, but even then the PC was incredibly slow. Even clicking on a web browser took ages to respond. However, I already knew what I wanted to do with it. You see, I am one of those stubborn few who has been refusing to upgrade to Windows 11. The 2 computers I own that meet the qualifications to upgrade to Windows 11, the PC I built last year and my Lenovo Legion laptop, are running Windows 10. I don't like Windows 11. I want nothing to do with it, Copilot, or Recall. And I'm sick of wondering if my PC is messing up when editing videos or playing games because it's running like crap, only to find out that Windows decided it wanted to download an update without my permission, thus making my PC run like crap and then making me wonder if my hardware was about to die, like maybe something was going wrong. I don't know why it isn't running right. Also, with the looming so-called e-waste apocalypse when Windows 10 reaches end of service, meaning there will be tons of computers that don't meet requirements to run Windows 11 that will be abandoned, Linux is the best way to put a current and still supported operating system on them that will continue to get new security updates as time goes on. Linux is a great way to bring old PCs back to life, but is also a great way to save them from becoming e-waste. So my little HP Slimline PC is a little Linux experiment prior to jumping off of Windows for good when Windows 10 is no longer supported. Now I could just as easily experiment running a virtual machine. I do have Hyper-V on my current PC because it's running Windows 10 Pro, but my affinity for taking old OEM PCs and putting Linux on them mixed with wanting to trial test Linux on real hardware means that I decided to put Linux Mint on my little HP Slimline 270 and familiarize myself not only with gaming on it thanks to Steam, but even some of the video editing programs. Surprisingly, Linux has made massive gains in both gaming and video editing in recent memory. There are still games like Fortnite that won't run on Linux, but thanks to the Steam Deck and Proton, thousands of previously incompatible PC games now run great on Linux. I chose Mint because it's one of the easiest distros to learn for people jumping over from Windows. It has a similar aesthetic to Windows, taskbar, start menu, etc. And it even gives you notifications about updates on the desktop, letting you choose when and if you download them. It will install the updates from there. No sudo apt get update needed. It also has an app store where you can find and install most of the programs you will want or need, like Steam, OBS, Audacity, GIMP, and more. On top of that, it also has a ton of free games that run natively on Linux, like a Bejeweled clone that actually lets you play endless mode, various 2D side-scrollers, and 3 excellent arena shooters, Cube 2, Nexius, and Open Arena, or Cube 2 Sauerbraten, I think is how it's supposed to be pronounced. Sauerbraten, something sour. Mint and Ubuntu are sort of the entry-level distros. They're stable and they work. I know right now Linux fanboys are about to chime in with a, well, actually. Suffice it to say, like consoles, GPU companies, and just about everything else nowadays, there are passionate fanboys of every distro out there. Let me address those people. I'm sure your distro of choice is the best because reasons. It's great for you and your needs, and that's the beauty of Linux. There are so many distros that appeal to all kinds of users and cater to their specific needs and wants. I personally just chose Mint for this experiment, and as cool as it would be to be a power user level Linux god, I have no interest in building my own operating system from the ground up with Arch. But you do you. Outside of upgrading the RAM in the system from 4 gigs of single channel RAM to 16 gigs of DDR4 running in dual channel at the maximum supported speed of 2133 MHz, I've kept everything else stock. As an experiment on a PC I already owned, I wanted it to be a cheap experiment. The RAM was like $20. There are some upgrades that can be done on my Slimline to make it run faster. For example, the motherboard does have an NVMe slot and even supports M.2 drives. I've chosen to just use the old mechanical hard drive that was already in the system. However, if I really wanted to make the system a ton more responsive, I would find a cheap NVMe SSD and would use the 500 gig drive as a backup storage drive. An NVMe SSD would make the PC run a lot faster. If you have a similar HP Slimline 270 PC, an NVMe SSD is a viable upgrade for the system. Another upgrade I could do is buying a Core i3-6100, which has the same 51 watt TDP as the G3930 currently in the system. Even though I wanted to make this experimental build as cheap as possible, you can pick up Core i3-6100 processors used on eBay for $8 to $10 with shipping, and I might just do that. I double checked and for whatever reason it doesn't appear that the T variant of the 6100 works, even if the motherboard does support the 7th gen T variants like the i7-7700T. The T variants were lower TDP and have lower clock speeds than the non-T variants. So if you're looking for an i3-6100, make sure it's a regular i3-6100 and not a 6100T. I just checked again today and the i3-7100 and the 7100T are also dirt cheap. I'm not sure what BIOS updates, if any, would be needed to run the 7th gen chips, but when the system was on Windows 10, I did update the BIOS through the HP website a while back. Both the i3-6100 and the 7100 are so cheap I'm tempted to pick them up, even if I just wanted this build to be as cheap as possible. It's hard to say no to an $8 to $15 CPU upgrade. Another tempting upgrade I did make but decided not to use in the end was I picked up an OEM R5-430 single slot GPU for $12 with shipping. It was a $12 card, so very cheap upgrade. The R5-430 is a terrible card when compared to most modern cards, but for a small form factor build it works well, and the HP Slimline's 180 watt power supply definitely limits the cards that you can use. The reason I've ultimately decided not to use the card board is, for one, mine didn't come with a low profile bracket, meaning I had to remove the bracket altogether, meaning the card just sits there in the PCIe slot without anything to support it. Connecting cables to it felt really sketchy, and I was one good crunch away from disaster. Also, when I added the AMD drivers, I goobered something which broke the entire operating system. The package manager wasn't working, it was broke. I decided just to reinstall Mint altogether and start with a fresh install. I know I could probably get it to work with the R5 430, but I was already impressed with the gaming results I was getting with the HD60s onboard graphics. I'll find a separate use for the 430 in the future. And another caveat of the R5 430 is that it supports an older version of Vulkan, so you have to install an older version of Proton to use it on Linux. The thing about Linux is you'll want to have an AMD GPU for any gaming build, as Nvidia support on Linux is minimal. I've heard of some people successfully running Linux on an Nvidia card, but most Linux users will tell you to just use an AMD card to be safe. You can use the official AMD Linux drivers or the open source ones. It's up to your personal preference and needs. For the first two videos I made about this PC, like the goober that I am, I wasn't running games under the Proton layer. I knew you had to enable some setting in Steam in order to play games. A quick Google search would have helped me out on this one, but I was too lazy to do that apparently. So what this meant is I ended up testing only the games that ran natively on Linux. Of the games I own, there are actually quite a few that just run natively on Linux, like Bioshock Infinite and the Half-Life series. The first video was with 4GB of single channel RAM running on the onboard Intel HD60s graphics. The second video was showing the impressive jump in performance from adding 16 gigs of DDR4 to the system. When I show the benchmarks later in this video, it will be the same setup of 16 gigs of DDR4 running at 2133 MHz and with the onboard Intel HD60s graphics. For the sake of being able to run the games, most of the footage was captured at 720p with the exception of games that I had to run at lower resolutions, trying to get them to a more playable frame rate. Some of the available resolutions I chose in this video are due to using the Elgato HD60s to capture the footage. The HD60s is picky about what resolutions it will capture footage at. The screen tearing in some of the footage is also the result of using the Elgato to capture the footage and isn't representative of what I was seeing on the screen at the time. So far I'm actually quite happy with the results at 720p. Basically the PC is around probably the Xbox 360 in performance at 720p. It runs some games better, others it runs worse. It does pretty well with 720p gaming, but I've determined that Unreal 3 Engine and older titles are the games I want to target with this rig. That being said, I actually pulled out an old VGA monitor I still have, an AOC 931 SWL LCD monitor. It's one I bought for around $100 in the year 2011 or 2012, and it made the games look better and run better at even low resolutions, meaning I might be able to play something newer than Unreal 3 Engine, but at low resolutions. The AOC monitor has a max resolution of 1366 by 768 at 60 Hz. However, if you lower it to 1024 by 768, the monitor will output that resolution at 75 Hz. Games still run and look great at lower resolutions on this monitor. Not that you can tell with the ancient camera I am using to record the screen here. Sorry it looks so bad, I don't have a better camera. Not even on my phone, which is the cheapest smartphone you can buy at Walmart with Straight Talk. I live frugally with stuff like that, I don't care about phones. Even watching YouTube videos at 360p still looks great on this old monitor. I guess it's akin to how 720p looks great on my native 720p TV, but looks terrible on a modern display. If I had the room for multiple computer setups, I would definitely run my Slimline with this little monitor, and I would be perfectly happy capping the frame rate at 75 Hz, and then seeing if I could play even more modern games at lower resolutions, which would still look good on this monitor. For benchmarks, I'll be showing roughly 3 minutes of footage for each game, so these are kind of gameplay samples on top of benchmarks. I am running Mango HUD, which is similar to MSI Afterburner in that it shows the benchmarks. One caveat is, for these benchmarks, the average frame rates might be a little off because of pausing the game and having the frame rate in the menus throw the averages off. It wasn't until I recorded a lot of these benchmarks that I finally figured out how to reset the counters in Mango HUD by hitting Shift and F4. In conclusion, Linux is really fun to play around with. I know you can easily run it on a virtual machine or or even dual boot it on your PC running alongside Windows if you're wanting to get the hang of using Linux. There are so many distros to work with, and I personally find it fun to learn something new. If you're interested in learning Linux and have a weird geeky passion for bringing old hardware back to life, like I do, finding a cheap Slimline PC is a fun way to explore the world of Linux and Linux gaming. If you have an old laptop or an old desktop lying around collecting dust, try installing a Linux distro on it if you're interested in learning something new. Even if you're scared of the terminal, there are thousands of websites and forums with guides on how to sudo apt things. With the right distro, you barely have to use the terminal if you don't want to. Even if you're not going to put Linux on it, these little Slimlines are dirt cheap nowadays, and there's a lot of different models available for cheap, most of them with better processors than the Celeron G3930 I am using in my machine. If you're looking for a cheap esports gaming rig or like to play older PC titles, and even if you don't want to put Linux on it and you just want to keep Windows on it, you have even more small form factor GPU options than AMD. Maybe you just want a cheap computer to surf the web with, or want an emulation box. Whatever it is you want to do with it, these things are dirt cheap and still pretty capable with older games. If you're like me and you see an old Dell, E-machines, HP, etc. and see potential in it that others don't see, and have yet to tinker with an HP Slimline, as of making this video you can find these for a similar price and sometimes even cheaper than a used Dell Optiplex. The proprietary 180 watt PSU might be worse than the average Optiplex PSU, but these are still really fun and capable machines to play around with. And with all that said, here are the 720p benchmarks for my HP Slimline 270 with 16 gigs of DDR4 clocked at 2133 MHz and a Celeron G3930 processor clocked at 2.9 GHz. And the benchmarks are no commentary, so no commentary.
Confiscation field engaged. Warning. Counter-vectoring singularity device detected. Confiscation field failed to be alert. Illegal counter-vectoring singularity device.
So, this is Dr. Freeman. At last. I wish I could say this was a pleasant surprise, but it's neither a surprise nor, as you will surely agree with, well, I have nothing more pragmatic. Under other circumstances, I like to think
log up some salvage.
finally got the EDF's attention. They're about to mount an assault on a nearby housing complex.
I know you must feel like the unluckiest man in the world right now, but you're the only hope I'll ever see my wife and child again. Go to Neptune's bounty. Find my family, please.
You're gonna be alone. And you are the only one. No one will be there.
Plasmids changed everything. They destroyed our bodies, our minds. We couldn't handle it. Best friends butchering one another. Babies strangled in cribs. The whole city went to hell.
What's the big idea, Charlie? Charlie! Charlie, where you going? No, Charlie!
Intruder alert. All personnel must evacuate.
Wake up, Private! You're in some serious shit. We're bugging out now. Level 3 doors on you left, so get your ass to the common room and I'll brief you from there. Okay, Private. We've got a security.
Blast doors site
Ass
now.
to the airlock. Gotta go through the egg lab first. Open the blast doors in here by pulling the override switch. Don't worry about those eggs.
Warning, airlock activated.
Okay, proceed through the tunnels and rendezvous with Ultimate 3. They'll escort you out. Had some light measures. May need to use your energy intensifier. Careful, Private, we've lost contact with the altitude. We're getting God damn it, looks like the unit has some trouble. I'm afraid you're on your own. Take the underground access stuff to the main colony. Try using the override switch for the observation.
Ventilation system offline.
I'm lucky I can't fit a grenade launcher in my bag. One good spill deserves another. Your blood for my drink. I've got a price for it.